Hi everyone, it's Scott. I am back with another installment of my 20-year film festival. This is a series that I've been doing in which I talk about films that I'm recommending from each of the last 20 years. 14 movies per year, which would make for a nice 2-week film festival if you wanted to watch one of these per night. I'm up to 2009 right now. Some of these movies, of course, you've most likely seen. A few of them, hopefully you haven't, would be interested in checking out. First, for 2009, there's one of the big hits of the year, Star Trek. Sure, a lot of people have seen this movie already, but it's a great deal of fun. J.J. Abrams, of course, directed this. It's a sort of a reboot, of course, of the Star Trek film series, taking the characters back to an earlier time, making them younger, and then recasting all the main parts, with the exception of Spock, who is played by two different actors in the movie. Yeah, a lot of fun. For me, this movie is basically just a big action movie set in space, but it has two great moments that I think are wonderful that really make the film special. The first scene, basically, where Kirk and his mother narrowly escape from the Romulan attack. That's really exciting and emotional, actually, which is kind of cool, seeing as how it comes so early in the movie. And one of the last scenes in which the Enterprise has to escape from something terrible happening that's about to destroy them all. And Kirk's on the intercom telling Scotty, "Scotty, we need more power. You need to get out of here now." And Scotty's running around the engine room going, "I'm giving her all she's got, Captain." And Simon Pegg, of course, is Scotty. The real pleasure for me in this movie was seeing all the different characters in various places, you know, in all sorts of disparate locations and positions on the ship, and then one by one they're moved into their correct position. The only two people that start there's actually three people that start on the ship at the same place that they end up at, and that's Spock and Chekhov and Sulu. Sulu's replaced actually someone, but that was really before the whole adventure got underway. Everyone else ends up replacing people or switching their parts or whatever, you know, but they're all in their correct places once the movie ends, which is pretty fun. There's the next movie I'd like to talk about is called In the Loop, which is a comedy, which is directed by Armando Iannucci, and I believe that he is one of the co-creators of the HBO show Veep. Veep is sort of like the American version of In the Loop, or at least it strikes me that way. You've got people who are politicians that are always making really, really bad mistakes and saying the wrong thing and then suffering great embarrassment or other consequences because of it. The main character in The Loop, Tom Hollander, who I believe is the British Prime Minister, although it's been a few years so I don't remember his exact role, his exact character, but he ends up saying something on TV, making some sort of error in vocabulary or something like that. He just says the wrong thing, and it starts this whole chain reaction of international relations shenanigans. You know, it's all pretty funny though. Tom Hollander, of course, played the evil head of the East India Trading Company in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. James Gandolfini is in the movie. He plays an American general. Anna Klumsky, who is also in Veep, plays a supporting part in the movie. And then there's Peter Capaldi, who is another official working in England. He's a Scottish man, but he's working for the British government in a certain position. He just basically rips on everybody. You know, everybody he encounters, he ends up yelling at. It's pretty hilarious. Now I'd like to talk about a movie called The Uninvited, which is a remake of a Japanese movie called The Tale of Two Sisters, which unfortunately I haven't seen. I know a lot of people will probably say just go with the original, but I really liked The Uninvited quite a lot. It's directed by Thomas and Charles Gard, and the main character is played by Emily Browning. She is basically a teenage girl who just got released from a psychiatric hospital. And is coming home to live with her father and her older sister and her father's new wife, who just happens to be the former nurse that was taking care of her mother before her mother died. The nurse is played by, the former nurse I should say, is played by Elizabeth Banks. Her father is played by David Strathairn, and her older sister is played by Ariel Kebbel. And the two of them, the two sisters, really kind of regard the new woman in their father's life with a lot of suspicion, and Emily Browning begins to wonder whether or not she deliberately caused her mother's death just so that she could snare their father for herself. So there's a lot of suspicion there. Really like this movie a lot. There's some good surprises in it. Surprises I certainly didn't expect, and also a really, really great score. There's a recurring theme that I really liked a lot in the film. Then there's a movie called Not Quite Hollywood, which is a documentary. It was made by Mark Hartley, who I believe has another documentary coming out soon, or came out really recently. I'm sorry, I forgot to check on that. This movie is about the Australian film industry and sort of the whole sort of course that it charted, I think from like the 60s and 70s to now. Mostly Australian exploitation movies, making money overseas and gaining the popularity. It's not just about Mad Max and about the most famous Australian films, but about the whole sort of exploitation genre and about the history of the country as well, along with it. Really, really fun movie. Tons of really great clips from all different kinds of movies. Really, really exciting, especially for film fans. It's really, really great. Another film that I really enjoyed was called The Time Traveler's Wife, and I have to say that a lot of people probably wouldn't like this movie. I'm sort of predisposed to liking this type of movie because it falls into a certain subgenre that I like, the sci-fi romance. It was basically adapted from a novel by a Chicago author, and it was filmed in Chicago, so that's always nice, because, you know, I'm a Chicagoan. This is about, the main character is Eric Bana, who is a guy who spontaneously time travels. He has no time machine, he just jumps backwards and forwards in time uncontrollably, and this makes life kind of difficult for him. The woman he falls in love with is played by Rachel McAdams, and so they have sort of an odd relationship. He ends up traveling back in time to when she was a little girl and meeting her then, and then when she grows up, she meets him for the first time when she's an adult. So it's like she's spent all this time interacting with him, growing, you know, into adulthood, and then finally she meets him, but he's only meeting her for the first time because he hasn't yet traveled back to those points. It's a little crazy. The director is Robert Schwenke. I don't like Robert Schwenke as a director at all. He's made some pretty awful movies like Insurgent and Red, movies that are way more dull than they ought to be. For big action movies, they're pretty darn dull. So yeah, he also did R.I.P.D., which actually I like more than either of those other two movies. But this is a really good movie, but I say that's largely down to the premise rather than necessarily if it's a well-made movie. I've only seen it the one time, but I found it really compelling and exciting. I was curious to see where it would go, and I did read the book as well after I saw the film, and I have to say the movie's ending improves on the ending of the book. The ending of the book is a little overly vague, but the one in the movie is really, really good, so I would strongly suggest that one. Adventureland. Adventureland is by Greg Mottola, who did a movie I talked about a couple of videos ago called Superbad. Adventureland is not a farce. It's a comedy, but more of a dramedy, I guess you could say. Jesse Eisenberg is the main character. He just finished college, but he's having a really hard time finding the kind of job that he wants, the kind of job that he earned a degree for, so he ends up working for the summer in an amusement park. This takes place in the 80s, so there's a lot of 80s style in there, or subtle 80s style, like Zodiac, not overly gaudy 80s style, in the sense that Zodiac didn't employ overly gaudy 70s style. Kristen Stewart is the girl who sort of catches his eye, and of course the two of them, they're in this new movie that's about to come out called Adventureland, which could be fun. But this is a really good movie. Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader, I believe, are the couple that run the amusement park. They're a lot of fun. Ryan Reynolds is in it as well. But yeah, it's sort of a low-key kind of romantic drama, and people who think that Kristen Stewart's not a good actress at all really ought to check this particular movie out along with some of the more recent stuff that she's done, and I think that you might change your mind on that. I don't know why people hate Kristen Stewart except for the fact that maybe she was not enthusiastic about having to promote Twilight movies and star in Twilight movies for so long. If you were in her place, you probably wouldn't be that enthusiastic about being in those movies either, and then talking about them enthusiastically for months afterward. You know, so yeah. Yeah, I think she's a really good actress, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from her, and that's a good movie of hers. Finally, for this video, I'd like to talk about a movie called Carriers. If you've seen Zombieland, you've seen the comic version of this movie. Carriers isn't about a zombie apocalypse, it's about a viral outbreak. But the setup is the same. You've got four characters who are sort of thrown together and are taking a road trip, basically, trying find someplace safe to stay away from the dangers that are everywhere, because most of the country has been decimated by this infection that's transmitted so easily. Chris Pine, who is in Star Trek, of course, played Kirk in Star Trek, is one of the main characters, and Piper Perabo is his girlfriend. And then you've got a couple of younger characters, one of whom is Emily Van Camp from Revenge. Who is the boy? Oh, man, I wish I could... it was probably... darn it, you know what? I can't even remember who it was. I saw Zombieland, and when I saw this movie, I'm like, wow, this is like the more serious version of Zombieland. So yeah, they have to be really careful who they interact with. They have to be careful who and what they touch, because they could catch the the disease at any point. So yeah, it's kind of intense. Probably a lot of people like Zombieland more just because it's more fun. But yeah, I like Carriers quite a lot. It was co-directed by David and Alex Pastor. Not really familiar with their work, same as the Guard brothers. But yeah, really good movie. So that's 7 right there. So I'm going to end it there and pick up with the other 7 in a later video. I hope you'll tune in for that. Thanks very much for watching, and by all means, comment and visit my CineRam Facebook page. You'll find the link to that below. See you again real soon. Bye.